Okay, so welcome everyone and greetings to you all from Melbourne, Victoria. If this is the very first time you have joined us, I am Sarisha McLean, the Regional Rotary Public Image Coordinator, and it is really so lovely to see you all here today. So we are joining together today from across Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands. And on behalf of all of us, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which each of us meet, live, learn, and work. I acknowledge and honor Indigenous cultures, traditions, country, iwi, and nation, and pay my respects as appropriate to elders and leaders, Kaumatua and Kuya, past, present, and emerging. I'm really so excited about our topic today and so thrilled that Reese Martin, the creative director and photographer from Rotary Down Under, is presenting today. So Reese is going to share how to take good photographs, some techniques and ideas for capturing people doing good rather than everyone waiting to board a bus like in a queue, and really how to ensure your photos get published and how to tell Rotary's story to a broader community. So a little note about housekeeping. If you can please put your name and district number on your profile, that would be really, really helpful if you know how to do that. If you don't, if you just press on the three little dots on the upper right hand of your screen, and it will say rename sort of in the second section there, and you can rename. Just put your name and your district number or your club. That will be helpful. Thank you. And if you can also mute yourselves, that will be really, really appreciated. And if you do have any questions as we're going through, pop them into the chat box at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And I will send a recording of this session to everyone who has registered, because there are obviously people who have registered and haven't been able to be here today. So everyone will get a recording. So, well, now I'll hand you over to Reese. Reese.
Thank you very much, Sarita. Hi, everybody. I shall share my screen with you. This one here, PowerPoint. There we go. Everybody can see that okay?
Yep.
Beautiful. So yeah, as Sarita said, I'm Reese. I'm from Rotary Down Under magazine. I'm the creative director and photographer. Will it let me? Oh, there we go. That's the first time I've tried to run a PowerPoint on a split screen. So this is a bit of a learning for me, so I can keep pictures of you guys open and also have the PowerPoint running as well. So yes, 16 years designing Rotary Down Under magazines. I've been doing it for a long time. 22 years working as a graphic designer and a photographer, and 16 years as a freelancer. So I've been doing it a long time. Graphic design sort of was my sort of main profession, and photography was always my creative outlet. My dad was a professional photographer as well, so it's something I've always done even from a little boy, and I've sort of grown now that I pretty much work my work sort of 50-50 between graphic design and photography, and I've shot some campaigns for Rotary International and stuff like that, so you'll see my work around the place. What we're going to cover today is, as Sarita said, for getting good images into the magazine, I'm assuming that most people are going to be mobile phone photographers these days. Not too many people are going to have cameras, and if they do, they're probably more on the pro level now anyway, that they would know how to use their pro cameras. Anyone who was sort of in that point and shoot happy-go-lucky category probably just have a mobile phone now, so that's what we'll concentrate on today. But if you do have any questions on using like point and shoot cameras as well, you always feel free to get in contact with me. But most of this stuff will apply across any sort of photography as well, because I'll talk about some techniques which will work for even if you're shooting on a camera as well. When I cover the things like editing on apps and stuff, obviously that won't work for a camera, but the rest of it should be good. So we're going to go through how to get the best results from your mobile phone, natural lighting techniques, ideas for capturing people doing good, editing it on your phone, and then the most important one is applying the correct files to us for the magazine for print. That's a problem that we're running into a lot, where people are supplying images, but they aren't good enough resolution to run in the magazine. A lot of people are, shooting for socials these days and supplying us those photos, but then obviously they're not good enough to run and print. So I'll talk about that as well and what to look out for. All right, so let's talk about how to get the best results from your mobile or cell phone, covering the Aussies and the Kiwis. I think the Kiwis call it cell phones, Aussies call it mobiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through a few photos here, which are actually shot from a mobile phone. So these are from the recent the 11th annual International Mobile Photography Awards, which were held in March. So this is to show you the sort of quality that you can get from mobile phones these days, which I think you'll all be like, it's pretty impressive, the sort of level of quality that you can get. You almost couldn't tell the difference between, a mobile phone and a professional SLR camera. And I'll go through the techniques that these people are using, because there's obviously limitations to a mobile phone. And these photographers obviously know how to work around those so that you don't actually tell the difference. So the biggest limitation is your sensor size in your phones. So the difference between a mobile phone and a camera is the sensor. So the sensor is about 20 times smaller than a full frame camera. So here I've got a little illustration of the size of a full frame, the one that's circled. That's what the majority of people, like professional photographers, use. Some use a medium format, but that's full frame is the most common use. And you can see there the little tiny smartphone camera. So even though they've come a long way in their quality, the sensor's still very small, because obviously they've got to fit in such a little tiny device. So that's what limits it. Don't be fooled by the megapixels. A lot of people sort of talk up, 50 megapixels, 60 megapixels, and mobile phones doing that. It's not about the megapixels, it's about the light that falls on the sensor. That's what's going to give you the best photos. So this here is a little illustration of the difference between with a large and a small sensor when it's dark conditions. So when there isn't great light, you'll find on the right hand side the noise is very speckly, and that's your phone trying to computer digitally enhance the image so that it's not just completely black, but you get a lot of noise. Whereas on the left, you can see that it's clean. And that sort of comes from just the amount of light that can get through to the sensor. So that's the sort of main shortfall of a mobile phone, is that they're really going to struggle in low light. So we really need to make sure that when we're taking photos, we think about the light and how that's going to affect your photos. The other thing with a small sensor is depth of field, which you don't get. So if you look on the left-hand side there, see it's got a nice, beautiful blurred background, which they call bokeh. And then on the far right, you'll see there's no separation between the foreground and the background. So on the right would be more what you get from a mobile phone. On the left is more what you get from a professional SLR camera with a shallow depth of field. Mobile phones, when we'll cover this a bit later, mobile phones do have modes, including portrait mode, a lot of the recent ones, and they can do a simulated blurred background to make it look like the one on the left. They're not perfect because they are making it up with computer rather than actually being natural. So you can sometimes get some little funny sort of pixelated areas where maybe the computer hasn't quite figured out the cutting out. So tip number one is a really basic one. This is one that most people forget when they shoot from their mobile phones, is you need to clean your camera lens. So a lot of people put their phones in their pockets, their handbags. So you get lint, like lint from your pocket. You might get finger marks all over it. So that's something I actually do quite regularly. I'll pop my phone out of its case. I'll give it a clean and just make sure that those camera lenses on the back are nice and clean before you take your photos. So that's something you really need to think about doing often. This is tip number two, the natural lighting, and this is the biggest thing for me, especially when it comes to mobile phones, because as I talked about the small sensors, we need to make sure that we've got great lighting, and the best light we've got is natural lighting. So most people who are shooting on a mobile phone won't be carrying around flashes and things like that. You can actually get flashes now that work on mobile phones, but I'd say that most people won't. So what we can do is we can harness the sun and use that in the right way to create enough fill light to give us a nice picture without too much noise. So what I've got here is I've done a little video on the left here. I'll play it, and you can see this is just me showing the difference between having the light fall on my face and turning around. From the light coming from behind me, so what they call backlit, and then turning around to the exact same window and having it front lit. I'll play this. You'll see I'll just slowly move around. This is not changing any camera settings in my phone at all. This is me literally just turning around and facing the window. And you can see the difference on the right side there from the start to the finish. So when you're doing internal shots, have a think about, is there a window close by that you can use that could give you the correct lighting to light the subjects up? Or is maybe there's artificial lighting, things like lamps, ceiling lights, things like that. I'll play it once more so you can see the transition. So yeah, just have a look around the room, because a lot of time shots are taken inside, and that's where mobile phones will really struggle. So this here is a professional. So it just goes to show it's a technique that professionals use as well, with a model on the right there. They got the light coming in from the window. So it's something that a lot of people use. You've just got to, pre-think about it. And this is a little diagram about how to think about it. So what you want to do is, hopefully, obviously, you can't direct the sun and work out, you can sort of look at where it is and try and position yourself best with the sun to try and get some light falling on the person's face. Obviously, you pick when you're out in the field and you're covering a project, say, you obviously can't pick and choose what time you're going to be taking those photos. So it can be difficult, but what I urge you to do is just have a little stop and think, when you go to take the photos, have a look at where the sun is and think, how will this fall on my subjects? How will it best light their faces? And think about shadows and the way, but you can definitely use it to your advantage. So tip number 3 is setting the focus and adjusting the brightness. So this is quite easy to do on a mobile phone. So what you can do is, this is a screenshot from an iPhone, and all you can do is tap the screen. It's pretty much the same. I've not used every phone, but I actually personally don't use an iPhone. I use a Google Pixel. I don't know if anyone knows Google Pixels, but they're very good photographic phones. But they all pretty much work similar these days. You can tap the screen, set your focus. So that's one thing to think about. What I normally go for is the person's eye or face, if possible. That's what you want to be the sharpest in the picture. So if we're looking at people, we want to make sure the eyes are nice and sharp. On that same, you'll see on that same, when you tap your screen, as I said, it's this is from the iPhone, but it works exactly the same on my phone. So I'm assuming a lot of your phones would be similar. When you tap the screen, you get this little slider next to the focus, and then you can slide that up and down, which you can use to set your brightness to get that desired look. To make sure something's not too underexposed, which means it's too bright, or overexposed, it's too dark. This is a handy little tip that a lot of people think that flash is for when it's really dark at nighttime, but I actually use my flash more during the day than I do at night, because at night it can be quite harsh and create like a false light. So during the day, I'll actually use it to fill someone's face, especially if people are out in the sun and they've got hats on. I'll use a fill flash. So just turn the flash on your phone. There's a little option normally to turn it on to definitely fire. Sometimes your phone might have it set to auto, which means it won't go through the day. But if you turn that to on, get your little flash to go on, and then that'll just fill up under people's eyes, and that'll just fill up under hats and things like that, reduce shadows. So that's a handy little tip that I use all the time. This is a little example of how you can you can see the sun's coming in on the person's right-hand side and creating a lot of shadow on the left, but then by turning your flash on, you can actually feel that darker side. It's actually funny if you're doing selfie shots as well, a lot of the newer phones allow you to make the screen go white because you've got your screen facing you from your phone. If you turn on a selfie light, it'll actually light the screen up white, and that gives you a nice little fill light too. So that's something good to have a look in your settings as well. As I mentioned a little bit earlier about using camera modes. So this is something to have a think about as well. Because the sensor's small, they've developed computational photography is what they call it, where the phone itself can sort of have some smarts where maybe it might take a few multiple exposures and stack them to give you some better lighting options to sort of counteract that small sensor. So this is one here. This is what they call HDR. So most modern phones have this option. HDR is great for landscape shots. If you're going to be out taking shots outside with Rotarians, working outside doing something, make sure you got your HDR on. And what that'll do is that'll normally take a couple of shots. It'll take like one exposure for your sky, one exposure for your foreground, and then it will automatically stack them for you. So you won't know that it's doing it. It'll just do it for you. And then you'll get this beautiful, like you can see on the right-hand side where the sky is perfectly balanced and the foreground's perfectly balanced as well. Another mode is portrait mode. As I say, it's not 100% perfect. You can see on the left-hand side, there's a little bit of fuzziness around her hair, where the phones use the computer to sort of cut her out from the background and blur the background. It works pretty good. As I say, not perfect, but it's pretty good. So it's worth giving it a shot. Sometimes maybe I'd take two photos, one with portrait blur on and one without. In case it fails, you've got both. Some of them now, the phones are actually allowing you to add that function later as well. So you just take a normal photo and then you can go into the settings and then adjust the portrait. One of the limitations of phones is zoom. So a lot of people, there's no zoom on them. But the best thing that I remember I got told is the best zoom is your feet. So zooming in and out with your legs, walking forward, walking back. You don't need zoom on your camera. Like you can just walk forward, walk back, and compose the shot yourself. So don't ever forget to move closer, move further away to change your perspective in your shot. And I think it's funny. You'll get used to it with time. A lot of people like to sort of zoom on their phones, to pinch and zoom, but the quality of zooming on phones is still very average. So I'd recommend you stay just at your normal percent. Some of the very latest phones have got some sort of zoom, have got some optical zoom, they call it, which is actually very good quality to a certain extent, but digital zoom's definitely a no-no. I'd definitely stay away from that. This is a big tip I see a lot. We get a lot of blurry pictures sent through to us where people aren't nice and steady with their hands. There's a few different techniques you can do. I don't know if, can you guys see me or can you just see the PowerPoint?
It's the PowerPoint.
Just the PowerPoint, because if I can show you me, I'll show you a couple of tips.
People can change the view so that you can see both. Yep. Just go up to the view and then click side by side speaker. Sorry, Reese.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you for that. So if everybody can see me, I'll show you with my phone. So a couple of little techniques is that normally most people I see, they'll have their phone out like this and they'll just be one-handed shots. And that's obviously, like you can see how loose that is. They'll pull it out from their body because they're looking at the screen, and you can see how loose that is to get a nice good shot, especially when it's low light, if your phone is smart enough to take a couple of exposures. So there's a couple of techniques you can do. One really basic one is just obviously putting your second hand on, but then another thing we get from that, we quite often get the mystery fingers going across the lens. So one thing to think about, if you're going to bring your second hand up, make sure that you're gripping it from the top and the bottom, that you haven't got your fingers going across the lenses, because we often get the mystery finger on the photo. Another technique is if you're really shaky, you can actually turn your hand around and you can really grip it. So spin your bicep around and you can grip it like that with all your fingers and you can use your other one. And by doing that, what I do if I do that, I'll bring my arm in close to my body and rest it actually against my torso. So that'll help keep it very steady. That's gripping it with all your fingers rather than sort of out like that. And then there's a couple of little nifty tools you can get for your phones on the back. There's one called a poppet, which people have probably seen. They're like little like dot things that stick on the back of your phone. They're quite handy for keeping nice and steady. And then also, I can show you, this is what I personally use, which is a Gorilla Pod by Joby. So I'm not sponsored in any way. It's just that's just what I use. They're great little tripods that are small, easy to travel with. They're light, and as you can see by the funny design, they're actually bendable. So you can wrap them around things like trees and posts and something like that. So maybe you're out and you've got nowhere, smooth or low, or you want to rest it on a rock or something like that. These are amazing little tools. So I definitely recommend if you want to go to that next level to get something really steady, then something like this Gorilla Pod is the way to go. This is a really good one that you can turn on your phone. It's called the rule of thirds and also horizons as well. So most phones, they normally just call it grid. It'll be like photography grid or something like that. And what you'll see is, see the lines, we get these 9 squares. And what that does is that's a classic photography technique where what you want to do is you want to try and get your horizon straight. When you're doing landscape shots, you want to make sure your horizons are nice and straight. These can be edited as well. If it's not straight, we can always straighten it later, but it is nice to get it right straight up. And then what they do is, see the very center square? That's the square that they say you don't put anything in. So you can see on the lighthouse picture, they've directly lined that lighthouse up with that vertical line on the left, and that gives you an interesting composition. So when you're taking, say, somebody's photo, say it's a portrait shot, maybe you would have them in the left center square and the center square, so they'd go directly through that line, and they'd be off to the left. So that's definitely something to definitely turn on your phone, is the grids. They'll probably all have different names for it, but have a look. And there is a few different styles. There's things like swirls and things like that, but I reckon just the 9 square grid is your way to go for thinking about your composition.
How are you?
And then another tip, and this is actually my final tip before I go through a few other things, is experimenting with different perspectives. So what you find is that most people will walk up and they'll just walk straight up to the person, phone like that, eye line height, snap, walk away. So the point of this chat is more to think about your things before you just walk up and snap. But by thinking about your perspective rather than just walking up eye line height where everyone takes photos, if you think low, think high, things like that, you'll get some interesting perspectives which will help your photo stand out. So here's a little example of shooting low. So it's down nice and low on the ground. Maybe you haven't got the person fully in the shot. That creates a nice, interesting perspective. This is a high perspective. So you're looking down on somebody, like maybe some of the projects, I've seen some good ones lately where they were at a site where they were using recycled plastics to make bricks. I think it was in Bali maybe, or a project, and they were taking some great shots where they were up high shooting down on the people loading the bricks to create the buildings, creating the schools and stuff. It was really creative. That's a good one to look at. You can just use things like a chair or stairs, things like that. Just look for anything that you've got around you. You don't need to walk around with a step ladder. Another one to do is looking through doorways, things like that, like looking through windows, looking through doorways. So you can really help frame the subject, but create a completely different look. Like that photo would look completely different if I was just in the room photographing straight at the person. That's Megan, by the way. I don't know if anyone knows Megan, the editor of Rotary, but that's her there. Another option here is someone not actually looking at the camera. So that can also create an interesting look. So maybe they're doing something. So they could be, working on the project and you're shooting from behind. So they're still in the shot. It shows the person, shows the human element, but creates like a different angle and a different perspective. And I think I mentioned just before about reflections too. This is one I love, which is looking for things like glass, windows, anything that's sort of reflective. You know, maybe you're shooting through a window, people are inside. I really like that as well. It's a really cool look. So here's a sample of some real pics. A few of those pics we've already shown you are pics I've taken. And this is actually like pics from the magazine that we've run that I think really illustrates some of the principles I've gone over. So you can see here, this is, we've got a couple of elements here. We've got movement and motion. They're walking forward, and you can see the depth of field there as well, where they've created the focus. This is something I was saying about with the, tapping on the screen of your phone to create the focus point. So when you take this photo, don't just let the phone take the shot, tap on the lady at the back, and then that creates that nice little separation so your eye gets drawn to her. This one here is a great way to show people like interacting. So rather than, you know, everybody just standing there looking straight at the camera, they're obviously having a conversation, having a bit of a joke, having a good time, and that creates, you know, that's a really cool, happy look as well. Another shot is saying this is a similar principle of not looking at the camera, but people actually, you know, in the middle of their discussions, talking about things and doing things. So actually, you know, like more action candid shots. Think about things like close-ups as well. To see here, you've got on the left, you know, that's a good movement shot. The guy's moving, but then on the right, you've got a nice close-up of the tree planting as well. This is the mangroves project. I don't know if anyone knows that, but the rotary mangroves project's pretty cool. Also, yeah, a bit of emotion, and you know, that sort of connection between people, I think is always really good. Obviously, if the people are comfortable with each other, it could look a bit weird if they're not comfortable with each other. But if they're comfortable with each other, it's really nice to get that human connection. This is an interesting shot because a lot of people do the lineup shot, but this is having them turn away and look the other way as well. So that can be really cool as well. Like maybe it's like a project where they've got water sanitation or something. They could have all the people together lined up and they're looking at their handiwork. I'll give you a quick rundown on editing. Don't be too worried about this because we do editing here as well. So when you send the photos through, we'll normally give them a little color correct as well. But if you do want to go to that next level and have a little play with your images, there's a suite of, these are sort of my picks for best free and best paid apps. There's only a couple, and these are ones that I actually use. So of your best free apps, the phones themselves, Apple Photos and Google Photos are superb. So if you've got iPhones, just the standard Apple Photos is really good. Same with Google, just the standard Google Photos. The amount of work that both those two companies have put into their standard apps is brilliant. And they're obviously, one's Android, one's Apple. They're not on both systems. Google Photos may be on an iPhone. I'm not 100% sure, but Apple Photos definitely isn't on Android. But one platform is this one called Snapseed. So SNAPSEED, Snapseed, and that's a free app, which is better than probably anything out there if you want to get into editing. It might be a little bit daunting because it has so many options, but this is available for free on both iPhone and Android. And I highly recommend if you want to go to the next level, then Snapseed is the go. Yeah. And I've got a couple of paid ones here if you want to have a look at those. These are the two paid ones that I actually use. One's called VSCO and the other one's called Lightroom Mobile, which is an Adobe app. So VSCO, that's really cool. It's got like heaps of cool like film simulations from like the old camera eras like Kodak film and Fujifilm and things like that. So that can be really fun to play around with. But just be careful with filters. Some people get a bit filter happy, and it might be a bit over the top. So if you're going to play with filters, maybe keep both versions of your photos. Keep a non-filtered version and a filtered version, just because it might, you know, as I said, sometimes the filters can be a little bit heavy-handed. And this is Lightroom here, which these are paid apps. VSCO and both Lightroom, both I think about $9.99 a month, $9.99 a monbut you probably don't really need them unless you're into photography. As I say, Snapseed does everything that these programs do. But there's a couple of options if you want to look at them. And the big one is supplying the files to us. So as I said at the start, you know, we have a lot of issues with files coming through low quality. And we'll often go backwards and forwards, you know, and people will be like, oh, this is as good as it is. But especially if it's on a fairly modern camera in the last mobile phone in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, I'm pretty sure the majority of the major brands, their photos are just set to the highest res in the camera. If they're not, just have a look in your settings and make sure you are on the highest setting, because you don't want to be taking your photos super low resolution and then being told that when you send them to the magazine, then they're not good enough to print. So just have a look in your settings. I'm 99% sure that iPhones don't even allow you to change it now. They just shoot at the highest setting. I think Samsung let you change, and Google, I think, let you change as well. But just double check you're on the highest setting. As I show in this example here, a bit of a dramatization of it, but you know, we're often getting photos that can actually look a bit like this, so we definitely don't want to get them through in the magazine. As I said, they might look great on your mobile phone because your mobile phone screen is small, but when we go to print's about sort of 3.5 to 4 times the resolution of on screen, so it needs to be a lot larger. What we recommend is using a service called WeTransfer. So WeTransfer is actually a free service. You can sign up to an account, and it's really basic. You just put in the address you want to send the photos to, attach them straight from your phone. You can attach them at high res, and you can send up to 2 GB per message. And WeTransfer has a mobile website, so you can just open it in your browser, which is wetransfer.com. On any phone, and then also they have an iPhone app if you want to download the app. So it's a free account, no ongoing fees, and that's your best way to get images to us. It sends us a download link, we get the high res, we can download them, you can see when we've downloaded them, and it's a really handy way to sort of track your files and make sure you've attached the best size you can possibly get. Also, we ask that when you do attach your images, we really need captions. We really struggle to get photo captions out of people. So things like names and things like that. You can include it. You can change your file name if you want. Some people will send us the picture where the actual file name is the caption, or you can include it in the description in WeTransfer. That gives you a little box to sort of put a description in there as well. So here's the address. It's wetransfer.com. So pretty basic, really easy to use. As I said, completely free. And that'll attach straight from your phone. So when you go to send us something, just say attach straight to the photos on your phone, tick them, attach them. And the best place to send it, the email address is editorial@rotarydownunder.com.au. And that'll come through to Megan Martin, who's the editor of the magazine, and she'll be able to go through and obviously file them all. Questions? Do I stop that screen sharing?
Yes, you may, please.
Stop share, there we go.
Okay, so do we have questions for Reece?
We went through a lot there pretty quick.
Oh, Iniki.
Hello, hi Reece. Hello again. We met in Sydney a couple of weeks ago. It was good to see you. Thank you for that. That was really good and helpful. I know when shooting a video, holding the camera this way is the way we should all shoot a video. When it comes to photos, is it really just down to the composition of the photo, which suits best, whether it's landscape or portrait?
That's an interesting question, because even the classic video being shot in landscape is now being challenged because of social media and our mobile phones, a lot of people now are shooting their videos portrait as well. So the very latest sort of software on cameras is even allowing you to shoot portrait video. So that's something that's changing pretty quick, which is something you would never have done. That was a big no-no. So up until a year or two, that was a big no-no to ever shoot a video portrait. But yeah, it's being done more and more now. So yeah, so I would, unless depend if you're going to use, especially with the video, if you're going to use it on socials, definitely shoot it portrait. Photo wise, I think pick your composition, what you think works best. Don't be afraid to try both as well. I'll often shoot the same photo twice. I'll shoot it portrait, shoot it landscape. So have you know, it's always good to have both. You can crop a landscape into portrait, but it's funny, it does actually give you a different result to actually shooting the original photo in portrait. So I would recommend, you know, more photos than less. So, you know, just take both, take portrait, both, take landscape of the exact same scene and pick later. The other thing I recommend too is always taking, I normally take probably minimum 3 shots of the exact same scene. So, because what you'll find, especially in groups, it'll be somebody with eyes closed, somebody with eyes open, somebody with eyes closed, somebody's eyes open. So I'll quite often take 3 shots of the exact same picture as well, just to make sure afterwards I've got the exact, you know, everybody with their looking the way I want them to look, or everyone's got their eyes open, or no one's pulling a funny face or something like that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much.
That's all right.
Okay, and Peter Boom.
Yeah, I was just wondering, with our Rotary meetings, we often get to the stage where we have a guest speaker, for example, or we might have a project and we want to get people up. And generally it's the same school shot every time. So you get a group of people all standing together and they're all got their hands down by their sides and everybody's smiling. Do you have any, it's kind of, well, can I say it? It's boring. So is there a suggestion you have to sort of spice these up so that actually they do add a little bit of colour to the either the project or to the guest speaker that we have down at our meetings?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it was something that I got caught with just recently. I was doing a photo shoot for the magazine, and I am definitely a fan of candid photos. So I spent you know, a good part of an hour just running around photographing everybody doing the project without actually getting anyone to pose or look at me. I said, everyone just ignore me. I'm just going to run around. I'm just going to shoot what I shoot. And then at the end, somebody was like, oh, we want a shot of everybody all together in front of the project. And I was like, oh man, like, how am I going to make this look interesting? And it is tough. It's really tough. What I ended up doing is had a little bit of fun. Like I had a little bit of a joke. I made a silly joke, and I actually joked one of the guys to lie down in the mud. And he did. He jumped down in the mud across the front of everybody. And then everybody's laughing. So then I've got this great candid shot of everybody in a line, but somebody's in the mud and everybody's laughing. Obviously, at a Rotary meeting, you're not going to have any mud. But yeah, trying to get everybody to laugh and maybe interact with each other. They might, you know, maybe you could get them to sort of get in that position where they're in that line, but then say something funny about something that then they turn and interact, and you snap that shot. Another thing is creating heights and things as well. So maybe you might like, some might be sitting, some might be leaning, you know, and as depending on how well they know each other, like some might, you know, want to put an arm around somebody. So you can do things like that as well. So not everybody's just all dead lined up. So you can do things like V's as well, like a V shape. So you can have everybody like sort of, you know, V shape, you know, maybe, you know, and so it's just trying to create angles. So you sort of don't just get everybody in like a flat line. And if you are going to get people where you are taking that, if you can, think about bringing people forward from the background too. That's something that I think a lot of people will push people straight to the background, you know, everyone line up dead against this wall. So even by having some interesting background that might be blurred and out of focus might create a bit of interest in a photo that would have just been people lined up like an arrest shot in a, you know, you've just been arrested and you've all got to line up against the wall.
Okay. Thank you, Reese. And Elaine has got a couple, a question, suggestions for managing glare of people's glasses.
Yes. Well, as you can see by my lights, they're glaring off my glasses right now. But yeah, I don't have the space to spread my lights out. You'll see probably I've got two lights. And technically for glasses, what you want to do is you want two light sources. You want them coming from a 45-degree angle and they cancel each other out. So I don't have space on my desk here to have them out, but I would have, they would be much further out and they would then come in on the angle, whereas I've got them straight in front of me. Whereas, yeah, with glasses, you want to go two lights, 45-degree angle, and that'll get rid of that reflection. Probably not too much you can do outside with the sun, but maybe just think about it when you're looking at them. If a lot of people have glasses and they're all showing glare, you know, think about just rotating them a little bit to try and get that sun on a 45-degree angle and just sort of move them about and see if you can reduce it. But it is something that is there.
Okay. And she has one more, the best pixel or measurement dimensions for the classic head and shoulders shot.
There's no perfect pixels, just as big as your phone or camera will take it, and we'll have it. So just take it at maximum resolution and send it through. Probably high-res photos shouldn't be really under about 4 meg, probably ranging from 4 to sort of 8 meg a photo. If you're getting down to sort of like 1 meg or under, then it's definitely, you know, it's going to be too small to run in a magazine. But yeah, the best thing is just to send it to us exactly as it's shot, and we'll do the rest.
And one more from Elaine is the preference for photos in RDU to ensure the Rotary brand is included either on subject's closing or promotional material in the background.
That's actually a great question, because we're under very strict directive to not allow photos to run now that have incorrect branding. So anybody, and we've had to not run some cracking photos recently because the clubs have had old branding, and that's direct order from RI, and we can't do anything about it, unfortunately. So we love branding, and it's great to have in the photos, but RI specifically said if they can't have the current branding, then they want no branding at all. So if your club's got old shirts, then you just have to wear normal shirts. Otherwise, we won't be able to run the photo.
Great. That's something that we love to hear from the public image team, definitely. Right. Okay. So there was a question from Jenny Kerrison. Virtual meetings, any tips on a good composition for screenshots?
Screenshots. Like when it's like so what, like your camera from your computer, is that what you mean? Like when you're doing like a Zoom,
like today?
Are you live? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what you'll see today is I've actually positioned my camera slightly above. So what I think that's definitely the most flattering angle, is to have your camera slightly above. So a lot of people will shoot low, so because most people are using their camera on their laptop, whereas I'm actually using a SLR camera, which is plugged into my laptop, so it's on a tripod, so it's sitting higher. But what I recommend is, if you're just using, say, your laptop, I would raise it up on a box. You could use anything like a cardboard box or some books or something like that, and just raise your camera up so it's actually looking ever so slightly down, and that's the most flattering angle you'll get. Whereas, because what you'll do, most people will be looking down like that at their screen, and you're going to create shadows, double chins, things like that. Whereas if you're looking up at the camera, it elongates your neck, obviously stretches out your neck skin, you know, gives you a nice tight neck. Like, so you definitely want to be looking up, not down.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. And Julie, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Sarita, I'm just wondering, sorry, I went offline for a minute, I lost reception. Reese, your presentation is great. There was a question before about photos that make people just stand there for meetings and things like that, and how we can drive them up, which your comment and your response was great, Reese. But I also thought about the templates in the brand centre, which I find are really helpful when I'm trying to do something like that in this district. If I have a really good photo and then I choose that photo with an overlay for Connect or Rotary People of Action or something like that in the brand centre. I just thought I'd share that with the team in case someone isn't using that, and they might find that useful for them as well.
Yeah, the brand center is amazing. Like, there's so many good resources on there.
Excellent. And Iniki has just said in the chat that if the person wearing glasses moves their head to look down just a fraction, it will just help.
It can. So even if I tilt my head now, I lose my lights. But obviously then I've got the camera up high, so
Yeah, it's all those little techniques, isn't there? Okay. And Arun wants to know how you select the best photos. Arun, is that what you're asking? How?
Yeah, so my question is like, normally, we know how to take the pictures as he guided us. And then let's say for the same project, we have 10 photos, and among them, how do we choose the best one? So is there any particular, like the photos should be telling all the stories that what we want to tell through the photographs?
As I mentioned before, more is better than less. So if you've got 10 photos of your project, send all 10 to us and we'll go through and see what works. Because you're better off sending everything to us, and then we're happy to go through, work out what we think fits the story once it's been written. And then, because the other thing is, with page layout, we could get limited to space where maybe we've only got room for a portrait photo and you've sent us a landscape photo, vice versa. So it's best just to send us everything. Obviously,
yeah, I was thinking maybe we should send you one or two, the best one, where it tells all the stories about our project. That might be helpful for the people to let them know through the photographs, rather than sending you the 10 or 20 photos. Yeah, I'd recommend between 5 and 10 photos. Send us, and we'll pick it. But I think it's something that myself and the editor we pick. So it's probably I think it's better that if you just send us what you think's your top sort of 5 to 10, and then we'll then pick on space as well, because some stories. So normally we will send you the pictures, any pictures that is with a good quality, right? Yeah. So my question is like, even the pictures should tell the stories? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So obviously don't send us stuff that's not not relevant to the story. So we want to make sure that it's definitely relevant to that story and is telling the story of what's happening. So definitely people in action, people doing it. That's what we want to get. We want to get people in the middle of doing the project, doing what they're doing, so we can actually see the action. People creating that change. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. And Anne Matthews, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Reese. Can you tell me what you do about copyright? So with all the writing I've been doing for you, I'll often find a photo that's been done by a local photography firm. How do I get copyright, or do I just leave that to you and Megan? I have been writing, but often they don't get back to me.
Yeah, Megan contacts them directly. So we'll often pay if they're professional. We'll pay them. So we're normally some are kind enough to donate, even being professionals. They will donate the photos, being that we're a not-for-profit. But some obviously charge as well. So Megan goes through and makes sure that we have full copyright release for everything. And then one thing that you can do is Rotary International do have a little talent release form as well. So for anybody that's out on scene and they're wanting to take photos and they're a bit worried about making sure that everything's legal, you can get a little form that Rotary International have. Hopefully it's in the brand center. I'll have to double check where we can get that. And that's just a little simple. The person writes their name, a couple of details, and what they recommend we do is we just take a photo like that of the person just holding it up by their face. They hold it just under their chin. So then we've got their face, the text, and that's all you have to keep on file. You don't actually have to keep the paperwork. You just keep that on file. So if you want to make sure that you've got talent release from people as well, that they're happy that they're going to be in the magazine and that we're going to use the photo in the magazine and also on social media potentially, you can also do that as well.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, we definitely can't just take anything. So we wouldn't take anything just online without getting permission.
Okay, thanks.
Great, Trace. Now, Elaine, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Sarita. Reese, this probably relates to the question that you just answered with Anne, but if you've got, if you've taken, say, an event and you've got some kids there, children in it, if those photos get sent through to you, are you working on the basis, are you assuming that the club or whatever has the permission to use those photos, or do you want some actual evidence of that permission being given?
We work on that, yeah, you've probably got permission and that everybody knows you're taking photos and that it's okay. When kids are obviously a bit more sensitive, you know, some parents might not want their children featured in things, so that's definitely something. If there's going to be children involved, I'd recommend, you know, you even just asking the question, just saying, you guys happy that this could potentially go in Rotary Down Under magazine? You know, that's always good, just having that conversation. Because, yeah, as I said, sometimes people can be a bit more protective of children. But we do, yeah, pretty much assume that if it's sent to us, then they're aware that there's approval. There is some really funny regulations around, you know, having to get approval. It pretty much is only approval if it's considered more like a portrait shot, where the person's, it's sort of one to a couple of people. Whereas if it's a group shot, if you're, say you're just walking down the street and you take a photo of somebody walking down the street, you actually don't need to get their permission, because it's considered a scene or a crowd shot. It's anything that's crowd or scene, landscape, that sort of thing, cityscape. You actually don't need to get people's permissions, even if maybe you're the person right in front of my camera and I'm taking a picture of a city building. I actually don't need to get your permission. But it's a nice courtesy to obviously to make sure they're aware, though.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So yes, a few things to consider. Well, any further questions for Reese while we've got him? Mandy. Mandy, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself.
Sorry, I forgot.
That's all right.
Just regarding the files for the photos, obviously you want the genuine raw photo, right?
No, that's fine. We don't need the raw. If you want to send us raw, that's fine. We can process them. And that's great, but obviously raw photos are very large.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I thought.
You probably don't want to be, especially on a mobile. Some mobiles now will store the raw as well if you want, but the files are so large, it's probably not worth it. We can still edit the JPEGs, especially if they're high res. We can still edit it. So I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you really want to.
Okay, so for 300 DPI should be fine, like those printing sort of quality.
Yeah, exactly. Or just even if it's 72 DPI, it just has to be very big, because we'll shrink it down then to make it 300. But yeah, like a raw file can get up to like 30 megabyte per.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, it's going to be very large.
Thanks.
Definitely don't send me 1,000 raw files, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's 4 minutes to finish off. So thank you so much, Reese. It's been really worthwhile. When you were going through the tips, I just had to stop myself from getting my phone and trying to look at those settings. But I do use that grid, and it's really wonderful. But I'm going to start looking at the third, as you have suggested, plus all of those other tips that you have given. So thank you ever so much. So to everybody, certainly encourage you to share the information that you have gathered today with your clubs and ask those difficult questions. If you need assistance in the public image space, the Zone Public Image team is available, and you can find our contact details on the Rotary Zone 8 website, which is www.rotaryzone8.org. And a recording will be on that website as well under the public image banner, and also on the YouTube channel. Rotary Zone 8 has got its own YouTube channel, so you will find a copy of this there hopefully in the next week or so. So what a fantastic end of a session for this Rotary year, and we will be back again end of July. So please do keep out for information on both the Rotary Zone 8 website and the Rotary Oceania website, which is rotary-oceania.zone, the Facebook pages, my own public page, Sarita McLean Rotarian, and the regional newsletter Rotary on the Move. So before I actually forget, two things. One is I just have to have a shout out to Roz and Ralph Tierney on celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary today. So congratulations, Roz, of all of us, 40 years together, wonderful. So I hope you and Ralph have a fantastic day of celebrations and many, many, more wishes for you for so many more years to come. And thank you all for your attention and passion, for being so supportive and rocking up on the Sundays and enjoying those sessions and asking us for things to provide sessions on. It is really, really wonderful. And I guess, thank you so much once again from me. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I really look forward to catching up with you again. Take care, and on the count of 3, I will end this recording. If you want to step back and chat, I'll be there for a little bit longer, but I will turn off the recording right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Who that lady?
Thank you. Yeah.